Officers Stephen Carter and Joshua Reed were coasting through the tail end of their patrol, the city's industrial sprawl blurring past the cruiser's windows. It was a sleeper route, old factories, crumbling tenements, and the skeletal remains of a hospital abandoned 6 years ago after bankruptcy. They'd driven by the hulking building twice that night, its broken windows like empty sockets in the dusk. Nothing ever happened here, until Stephen saw it. "Stop the car," he said, voice sharp. Joshua hit the brakes, tires crunching gravel. From a third-story window of the hospital, a faint light flickered, pale, unnatural, unmistakable against the falling night. Neither had seen it before. Stephen's gut twisted as he radioed the station. "Unidentified light in the old hospital. No one's supposed to be there, right?" The dispatcher's response was curt. "Correct. Check it out. No backup available." Stephen cursed under his breath. The place was a labyrinth, and darkness was swallowing it fast. But orders were orders. Joshua parked near the rusted fence, and they scaled it, the metal groaning under their weight. Every entrance was locked tight, chains, padlocks, boards. The only way in was a shattered emergency window, its jagged frame snagging Stephen's jacket as they climbed through. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew. Their flashlights carved weak beams through the gloom, illuminating peeling paint and scattered debris. "We stick together," Stephen said, gripping his weapon. Joshua nodded, but after 20 minutes of fruitless searching, empty wards, rusted gurneys, silence, he grew restless. "This'll take all night," Joshua muttered. "Let's split up, cover more ground." Stephen hesitated, dread coiling in his chest, but Joshua was already moving, walkie-talkie crackling, as he headed down a shadowed corridor. "I'll check the east wing. Stay in touch." For an hour it worked. Static-laced updates confirmed they'd cleared half the ground floor. No signs of life, just decay. Then Stephen pressed his radio. "Josh, you there?" Nothing. He tried again. Static hissed, then cut to dead silence. A second later, a scream shredded the stillness, raw, guttural, unmistakably Joshua's. It echoed through the hollow halls, spiking the hair on Stephen's neck. "Joshua!" Stephen shouted, voice bouncing off the walls. No reply. He bolted toward the sound, boots pounding tile, heart hammering. He should have fought harder to keep them together. How could they have been so reckless? The hospital swallowed his calls, returning only silence. He retreated into a nearby room, barricading the door with a chair, and radioed the station, breath ragged. "Officer down. Send help. Now." "Reinforcements en route," came the reply. "ETA 30 minutes. Too long." Joshua could be bleeding out, or worse. Stephen couldn't wait. He steadied his trembling hands, checked his sidearm, and stepped back into the corridor. Joshua had been in the east wing, 2 floors up. Stephen climbed the staircase, each step creaking underfoot. At the landing, he spotted boot prints in the dust, Joshua's heavy tread leading toward the reception area. The scene there stopped him cold. Chairs toppled, a desk shoved aside, dustless patches revealing a recent struggle. On the floor lay Joshua's walkie-talkie, smashed to pieces. Stephen's pulse thundered. No blood, no body. Joshua was gone, taken, or fleeing. But where? Then he remembered the light. It had come from higher up, maybe the intensive care wing. A faded map on the wall confirmed it, 3 halls over, 1 floor up. It was a lid, the only one he had. The hospital's layout twisted like a maze, but Stephen pressed on, guided by cracked signs still hanging crookedly. The closer he got to intensive care, the stranger it became. Seats in the hallway were arranged in tight circles. Glass and debris were swept aside, floors oddly clean. And the walls? Every inch scrawled with jagged symbols and words in a language Stephen couldn't read, painted in a rusty red that made his stomach lurch. Old, dried, but no less chilling. This wasn't a hideout. It was a shrine. "Joshua?" he called, voice trembling. Silence answered. Room by room he searched the department. Dark, abandoned spaces with stained mattresses and overturned carts. Someone had been living here recently, but they were gone now. Frustration gnawed at him. Where was the light? Where was Joshua? Stepping out of another empty room, he froze. At the end of the hall, a faint glow seeped from beneath a door. His flashlight dimmed in comparison. Heart in his throat, he crept forward, straining for sound. Nothing but his own ragged breathing. The handle wouldn't budge. Locked. Stephen stepped back, announced himself, "Police! Open up!" and drove his boot into the door. Wood splintered and the panel crashed inward. A wave of flickering light hit him. Blinding after the dark, he stumbled back, blinking. Candles, dozens of them, lined the room, wax pooling on the floor. The walls bore more red symbols, denser here, chaotic. And in the center, a massive pentagram sprawled across the tiles, its lines stark and deliberate. Stephen's mind raced. The circles, the markings, the hospital, it clicked. Devil worshippers, a cult. He'd heard rumors in the city lately, pentagrams scratched into sidewalks, animal carcasses left in alleys, whispers of something sinister taking root. If they had Joshua. Stephen couldn't finish the thought. These people were unhinged. Then a thud, low, muffled, from a row of lockers against the wall. He gripped his baton, wary of an ambush. The lock gleamed, intact. One swing shattered it, and the door swung open. Joshua stared back, wide-eyed, tied up, and gagged with a strip of cloth. Relief flooded Stephen as he cut the ropes. "You okay?" Joshua nodded, spitting out the gag, voice hoarse. "4 of them jumped me at reception, fought 'em off, but they overpowered me, dragged me here. No idea what they wanted, ritual maybe. They left me when they heard you coming." Stephen snapped photos of the room, evidence when a low hum drifted from the hall. Footsteps, voices. "They're back," Joshua whispered. They bolted, racing down the corridor. A scream erupted behind them. Glancing back, Stephen saw them, figures in red robes, candles in hand, eyes glinting in the dark. The cultists froze for a heartbeat, then charged. Stephen and Joshua sprinted for the stairs, legs burning. Down 2 flights, they hit an exit door, unlocked mercifully, and burst outside. The fence loomed ahead. Adrenaline carried them over it, scraping hands and knees. They collapsed by the cruiser, gasping, as sirens wailed in the distance. Backup arrived in minutes, swarming the hospital. The cultists didn't get far. Police hauled out a dozen in cuffs, their robes stark against the flashing lights. The next day, Stephen and Joshua turned in their badges. They'd survived, but the hospital had broken something in them. Neither could face another night like that. The building's under guard now, its halls scrubbed clean of the cult's traces. The city breathes easier, they say, but Stephen still wakes to the echo of that scream, the flicker of that light. Some stains don't wash out.